The usage rates for the 4.7 Spiral Abyss are out, so we're going to go through what is surprising, what is not, to get an idea of what people are using to clear, so we can get insights into the 4.7 meta, as well as more tips and tricks for how you can get your 36 stars. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. So, usage rates. This is the percentage that of the players that have a character use them in this abyss. So out of the people that have Farina, 94% of them use them in this abyss, which is an insane number. I don't know if I've ever seen a usage rate as high as 94%. That is wild. Novelette are rocking a 91.4, which is absurd for a DPS. Kazuha at 86 and Baiju at 73.8. And the funny thing is, this is basically the most popular Novelette team. Zhongli is technically better, but Baiju's can be a bit comfier, especially if you have C1 Novelette. It makes it extra comfy. So the fact that this team is just basically the top team and the top 4 characters all at 73% is just, frankly, it's absurd. And I would like to say that usage rate does not equal power ranking. So just because this is the most used team doesn't mean that it's the fastest clearing team, but a lot of what will clear best in the abyss for most people is not what will clear fastest, it's what will clear easiest. And so often you'll see ease of use be pushed higher, whereas if there was like a really tight DPS check, then the more optimality shines through, whereas if the DPS check is a bit lower, then ease of use shines through. Now I know that this DPS is a bit of a damage check, but especially when you consider that a lot of people have Novelette C1 or Farina C1 or Novelette's weapon, then the damage becomes even higher. By the way, the usage rates has 147,000 or 142,000 person sample size, which is a frankly very large sample size. And so this definitely gives us an idea, and it is CN user data once again. So take that with what you will. Next is Nahida at 67, Zhongli 65, Yolan, Singcho. This makes perfect sense. Aggravate, like Dendra's super good on the first side. They're probably using Nahida with either Alhaitham or Clorand or Hyperbloom. All of these things are really good. Hyperbloom's good on both sides. Double Hydro is good on both sides. Double Hydro on the second side. Bennett a fair bit lower, mostly because you kind of want to use Dendra on the first side, anyways. Double Hydro on the second. So Bennett, like, still good. Like, I love that Double Hydro Bennett with Arlecchino Double Hydro Bennett on the second side. Yeah, Arlecchino a little bit lower than last time, but still pretty high considering she is a DPS. But because the Abyss favors Electro, it makes sense that Clorand is higher, and she's the brand newest character. So Kuki makes sense, Raiden makes sense, Kokomi makes sense, Yai makes sense, Childe and Shangling makes sense, Wriothesley, Chiori, Shanyun. Charlotte's pretty high in here. I imagine she's probably being used in a combination of Freeze and Novelette. Ito, if you have a very well invested Ito or Geo team or Navia, then Chiori on the first side. Chiori always pretty high. I guess it's a funny thing. Less people pulled Chiori, and the people that did are more likely to want to use her. So I think that's why she has relatively high usage rates compared to other characters when she's not as meta of a character. Wanderer pretty high. Nilou, I'm surprised Nilou and Ayato are this low. I think it's just because we've just got so many 5-star Hydros. Like, I think Nilou is really good on the second half of the Abyss, and even the first side of she's pretty good as well. But I tend to prefer on the second side. But I also like Novelette Nilou. It's a very easy, comfy team. Nilou Ayato, very good on the second side. I'm surprised Ayaka. Well, I'm not really surprised. I haven't played a lot of Freeze, but I think Freeze should work on the second side. I think it's just a pain to group up those Pyrolectors and keep them grouped. It's not the most fun situation with the multi. Faruzan pretty high on here. I'm surprised because this just takes into account C0 Faruzan across all accounts. But like, that's a really high usage rate. I guess people who use Zhao and who use Wanderer, they're really adamant about building up their Faruzan. But I don't know, it's just surprising to me that it would still be that high. Venti is a bit higher than usual. He's pretty good in this Abyss. I'm surprised to see Chevreuse so low. She's really good on the first side. You can definitely use her instead of Aggravate. I find her just as good as Aggravate teams on the first side. Really like her there. Sino's pretty good on the first side. Luni is a bit on the lower side this time around. And the low performing ones makes sense. I don't think I'll be surprised to see anyone down here. I know people meme on Gaming, But the reality is most people don't have C6 coming, so, and lots of people got him for the Lantern Rite, so it's like a very popular character that most people don't have the high constellations to make him work. And also, like, there's so many pyro DPSs. Like, even though Deluge Plunge is really, really good, it's like so many other characters can also do the same thing. Like, there's just so many pyro DPSs. The more character role overlap we get, the more confusing the usage rates are, and that they're very heavily biased towards characters that people prefer playing. For whatever reason, it might not even be meta. It might just be people prefer them. Like Yoimiya at 27% over, where is Fischl? Over 15%. Like, Yoimiya is not 27% better than Fischl in no world. She just happens to be, people just happen to prefer using her for whatever reason. Next, we can look at the ownership rate. So 94% of people have Kazuha, the standard and Nahida, the standard banners, and then the other Archons. People definitely go for Archons over everything else. Farina very, very high. Arlecchino pretty high. Novelette extremely high. To be fair, he's had 2 reruns now, but still kind of shocking to see DPS that high. Shenhe pretty high. Alhaitham pretty high. Ganyu pretty high. Chiori very low. Ridley very low. Albedo very low. And then the most used team. So we've got Novelette, Farina, Baiju. Like I said, it's the #1 team. Charlotte, yep, very high. Very good on the second side. Alhaitham for the first side. Cloran for the first side. Novelette Zhongli for the second side. Tainari for the first side. Kokomi Mono Hydro, yeah, Kokomi Mono Hydro, very, very awesome for the second side. Really, really easy to pilot. Tons of Hydro application. Very, very comfy and consistent clear for the second side. Alhaitham spread makes sense. I guess Yaya's spread usage is what's pulling her up. Being used with Tainari and being used with Alhaitham, that makes sense. She is better than Fischl in these. So it makes sense that Yoimiya is propped up by the spread teams. Spread is very, very good on the first side, and she is the best Electro for spread. So both the Tainari and the Zhongli. Interesting, people are using Arlecchino Zhongli on the first side. I really liked Arlecchino Double Hydro Bennett on the second side, but Child a mix on the first and second. Hyperbloom mix of first and second, but mostly on the first. Freeze mostly on the second, but a mix. Raiden National mostly on the first. Clorand all on the first. Wanderer mostly on the first. Raiden National with Yolan. Arlecchino Mono Pyro. People love their Zhongli. Zhao, pretty even split. Novelette on the second. Novelette. I mean, if you guys saw my other video on the Spiral Abyss, the teams that I recommended are not too surprising. Yeah, nothing really shocking me. I think the biggest shocking thing for me is how ubiquitous the Farina Novelette team is. I guess if I were to recommend any advice to people who are still trying to 36 star, you want to take a look at these teams, and even if you don't have all the exact characters, there's lots of easy substitutions that you can make. Like, you don't need to run the exact comp. Like, you can swap Yoimiya for Fischl, you can swap Zhongli for someone else, you can swap, like, there's lots of different substitutions that you can make for these teams, and this can inspire you and let you think of other ideas that can use your characters. And I know some people called me out for using 5 stars on my clear, and I don't think that that's really fair, because I think most people build their 5 stars. You're very unlikely to have very well invested 4 stars. Like, I know a lot of content creators always do 4-star clears, but a lot of times that's because their 5 stars have constellations and then make them a bit more unrelatable. But using a C0 5-star team is going to be more relatable than using a team with C6 4 stars. That's why I stay away from C6 Chevreuse for my clears, because yeah, I could for sure use, you know, a 1 5-star team with Clorand, Chevreuse, Fischl, Thoma. And yeah, that uses 3 4 stars, but it's much more unrelatable than my 5-star aggravate team of Clorand, Nahida, Kazuha, and Fischl. Like, it's much more unrelatable. And I don't think it's wrong, by the way, for other content creators to use teams with 4 stars. I think that's good, and it shows the potential of 4 stars and sort of underrated characters or lowered power characters. But at the same time, it's hard to get a C6 4-star. It's much easier to get a C0 5-star. Anything else that stands out to me? Lisa being at 0.1%. I mean, it makes sense. Every single person has Lisa, but she's actually a pretty decent substitute for Yoimiya on the Alhaitham spread team. I think Aggravate not being on the top 24 list is very interesting to me. Like, we do have the Clorand Zhongli Aggravate, but it's not even running Kazuha, it's running Zhongli. And then we've got Clorand Aggravate without Fischl, and then Clorand Hyperbloom. So it definitely this list is definitely tending towards comfortability, which is very interesting to me. I think the more I look at these usage rates, the more it reminds me that most people don't play for optimality. most people play for comfort. And this just always reminds me of that. And so I'm going to make, personally, this does change things for me a little bit, because I'm going to make more of an effort, because I see this again and again and again. I'm definitely going to make more of an effort to give the comfiest team options the priority over the higher damaging, because normally I do the higher damaging ones as the baseline, and then you can swap out certain characters for comfort. But I think from now on, I'm going to be considering comfort as the baseline for characters and looking at higher damage ones as other options, because generally people like really strongly tend towards that. Let me know what you think. Do you tend towards comfort? Do you tend towards slotting a Zhongli on your team? Or do you tend towards going for the highest damage possible? I think the biggest outlier for that theory is the Childe International. There's like no comfort on this team at all. But other than that, people generally tend towards comfort first. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you were surprised by, what you weren't surprised by. Make sure to check out YS Helper. Thank you to them for compiling the information. Take care. Bye for now.